right now, because you got to search and search and search for these things, because, like I said, this is all what's in the mainstream, what's pervasive within the media, and these are the avenues that places like CNN and NPR are going to, because somebody said yesterday, these are the people that represent black culture within America. I want to extend this to actually talk about how female hip-hop artists felt during the election in terms of their kind of identity crisis between identifying themselves with, and this is mostly for black females, with either a candidate like Hillary Clinton or a candidate like President Obama, who represents different aspects of their marginalized self, and how this kind of split, made even people like me question, okay, where am I identifying myself? And so that just extends further beyond hip-hop artists into the community as a whole, and even beyond to feminism and things like that. So I'm not sure if I was willing to go underground. I was more or less willing to show both sides of how women were affected by the election as well. So that's kind of where I wanted to take my paper.
Doc, to address your question, I finally found my paper. It seems like the laptop, I guess, it didn't save under the file name that I had it. So it had it as some weird numerical value where there's a string of 10 numbers. No, so great question, Doc. I'm actually going to read the citation where Leslie talks about this distinction of read-only, read-write, and I'm going to talk about kind of my own shifting understanding of these concepts, because originally I didn't really think of it as listen, write, and this came out of a kind of a conversation that I had with the good doctor back there. But in talking about read-only and read-write cultures, Lessig offers us the following parameters, and so he says that ordinary citizens, quote-unquote, read their cultures by listening to it or by reading representations of it. For example, musical scores. This reading, however, is not enough. Instead, or at least the young people of the day, add to the culture they read by creating and recreating the culture around them. They do this recreating using the same tools that professionals use, pianos, violins, guitars, mandolins, banjos, etc., as well as the tools given to them by nature, or vocal cords. Our culture in this world is flat, and it is shared person to person. And the read-only culture, he poses that it's a culture that is less practiced in performance or amateur creativity and more comfortable with simple consumption. Originally, when I was thinking about these distinctions and how it might play out for the individual person who's creating their own renditions of the Black Album as a kind of, obviously, I mean, they're engaging in read-write in some ways, but I saw it as a kind of listen, kind of a read-listen paradigm where individual producers are kind of reading Jay-Z's album in a very, or listening to Jay-Z's album in a very particular kind of way and adding a different meaning to it based on their music production. And Dr. Peterson and I had a conversation about, whether or not that's really the accurate way to represent it. So my thinking of listen, or my original thinking of listening and reading as opposed to kind of listen and writing, it's I'm not trying to put myself in the frame of mind that I was when I originally was at that point. For me, I think there was a particular kind of way that these artists are engaging the music, and so that you have these kind of different ways of representing, geography, representing space, representing kind of cultural values that you ascribe to music production. I saw it as a kind of only a kind of reading and a particular kind of writing of the culture, as opposed to thinking about I wasn't really thinking about the listening experience. And for me, it was really profound to kind of sit down and to go back and listen to these renditions. Some are better than others, but I actually heard these albums differently. I can actually hear Jay-Z enunciate syllables. Or if you listen to the kind of a cappella version, you know, on What More Can They Say, when he's talking about, you know, finger snapping and things of that sort, you can kind of hear that in the background. And I kind of, with thinking about this kind of third way of thinking about the culture, I'm trying to push myself in some ways because I've been studying lately and having conversations with ethnomusicologists to think outside of the paradigm of cultural studies and kind of moving away from not only lyrical content as text, but actually looking at what the listening experience is if you just strip down the lyrics and just think about the music. And I was kind of trying to theorize of ways of how do we listen to these different kind of renditions, but you know, how do we read it and how do we situate ourselves into that conversation of music production and so on. So I don't know if that answers your question, but these were kind of some of the things that I was thinking of as I'm listening to all these different renditions and getting tired of listening to Jay-Z. That I think the ethnomusicologists are right. I think their critique of cultural studies folks, in terms of their listening to music, I think there's some validity to the fact that you actually, even if you have a similar text, your fundamental reading of that text is different if the accompanying instrumental to that text changed. It's no longer the same song, is what I'm trying to say.